what is happening.
Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters.
Great news for the American people.
This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri with Branden Rathert, featuring Stephanie Bell, News Director Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, and Hannah, the producer.
This is why we listen to you.
Get ready, pal. And now, here's your host, Branden Rathert.
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
I have a motto. I eat and drink no for breakfast.
I eat no for breakfast. I eat no for breakfast. There is no vaccine for racism. Talking about the significance of the passage of time. The significance of the passage of time. There is great significance to the passage of time. This virus, it has no eyes, and yet it knows exactly how we see each other and how we treat each other. And when folks vote, they order what they want, and in this case, they got what they asked for.
Kamala gave us some new material over the weekend. Marsh, you want to hear it?
Yeah.
Isn't that a great way to wake up Monday morning? Like it's 6:09 and it's the weekend. Summer is winding down and it's getting, hectic, and we're tired of the news cycle because Trump now thinks he's getting ready to get indicted for a fourth time now. This in Georgia, really not a whole lot new there. Isn't this a great way to wake up, Steph? The vice president.
But, what is she honestly talking about? I'm thinking, if you closed your eyes and listen, you wouldn't even know that she was talking about politics or anything. You would think she was, selling you crystals out of the back of a van or something, because it's just so out there and, oh, my gosh.
And producer Hannah, so Hannah is incredibly intelligent, recent-ish grad from Mizzou Ag Sciences. She knows finance. She has worked in the banking industry. She has studied agriculture.
You're getting old when you're no longer a recent college grad. You're a recent-ish college grad.
But Hannah didn't know, geographically speaking, we talked about Russia and Ukraine, and Hannah was unsure. But thank goodness, remember that day Kamala explained Russia and Ukraine for us?
Oh, yeah.
Russia's a big country.
Yeah.
And Ukraine is next to it.
Thanks, Veep.
And it's a little country. And we have new material for her this morning, and I think we can at the very least compliment her because she's consistent.
Consistently bad.
Good morning. Welcome into the show. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri. There's Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
Brian Houseworth is here.
It's good to see you, and welcome back.
There's producer Hannah.
Consistency isn't always a good thing.
Mr. Marsh.
Amen.
Who's excited to...
But she has a speechwriter, right? All she would need is a script and be able to read, right? We're paying for that, right?
Her writers are on strike too, apparently.
Joe Biden ignored their speeches one too many times. I got sick of it.
All right, let's do... Hey, by the way, there's very well-known, outspoken Jefferson City resident. Even if you didn't live in Jefferson City, there's a good chance if you ever have driven around the Capitol over the years in Jefferson City, you probably, if you didn't know the guy's name, you probably knew who he was. He died over the weekend. But Kamala now defining a community bank over the weekend.
And so for years, we have worked to expand investment in community banks, in particular, those in overlooked and underserved communities, including rural communities. And as the name suggests, community banks are in the community.
What?
It's a good place to put them.
You know what I would love for Kamala to do? I would love to be at a press conference and have Kamala come out, and I'd be sitting and I would look like a John Marsh or a Brian Houseworth. I'd have my notepad. I'd be all journalistic and stuff. And I'd say, yeah, Miss Harris, can you tell us what year was the War of 1812 fought?
What night is Saturday Night Live on?
Who's buried in Grant's tomb?
Kamala, what color's the White House? Just a press conference full of these questions that, it's a real easy answer, but she's going to talk you in circles to give you an answer.
That almost sounds like you made it up. I mean, that is... I can't, I'm having a hard time believing that is actual audio. I know it is, but it is so bad.
Well, let's fact check it.
And as the name suggests, community banks are in the community.
Thank you.
What I'm thinking, and I don't know the context of
Brian,
that.
you can't make this better.
No, clearly what she wanted to say, and it didn't come out, is that community banks are not the large, big banks and stuff like that. But
well, why didn't she just say that?
I understand. I don't
She
know.
doesn't have the ability.
Yeah, I would think. Because we do, especially in the rural communities, very few big banks are in there that, a lot of people would know. They know them in that area, but they're local. But, very interesting.
James sends a pretty blunt text. It's so blunt, I would rather have Hannah read it than me.
Mm-hmm.
James says, Kamala is so dumb. How did she make it through law school?
I believe she failed the bar exam, at least, I think, on the first try.
Let's go with that.
I think she got it on the second one.
It fits my narrative. We will double check that.
Yep.
So that's
true.
Did she?
Yeah, failed it.
Really?
Yeah.
How many times did it take you to pass the bar?
I passed it on the first try.
Amen,
Although I
sister.
think, to her credit, I think she took it in California, which their bar is a little bit harder than ours. But, we should hold these people to higher standards.
And I agree with that. Listen, you can say a lot of things about me, and I'll say, yep, and that's true, but I'm not going out and trying to represent the people of some, of a town, city, or state, or country. Thank goodness.
Or listening area.
There was a dude in Jefferson City, man, always wanted one way or another, wanted to rep the people. And even if you didn't know the guy's name, I think it was somebody that everybody knew. My first encounter with him would have been fall of 2015. There was a traveling Vietnam wall display downtown Jefferson City. I went down there one night for that. And he's out there, I kid you not, pretty close to the river, with his van, with his sign said vote for Steinman president. Yeah. 2016. And then over a few years got to sit and chat with him a few times. Marsh, what a character this dude was.
Yeah, it's good. That's a good word for Leonard. Brian can relate. Colorful is another good word, but Leonard, if nothing else, was a veterans activist. He was always lobbying for veterans activities, and he was a perpetual candidate here in mid-Missouri. If somebody needed an opponent, Leonard Steinman was right there for him.
Even his wife, they ran against each other once.
They did. For Congress, actually. I believe it was in a congressional primary.
I think so.
How did that come about? Does anybody know the story there? That would be an incredible story. Maybe somebody from the Jefferson City News Tribune knows.
It was one of those things. I think they wanted to guarantee. I'm assuming they wanted to guarantee that a Steinman would face Blaine Luetkemeyer because that was the opponent at the time. I would add one other thing to what John and Stephanie said. And a lot of lawmakers, I think, would get a kick out of Mr. Steinman, and they would enjoy him. They definitely respected him, and they did get a kick out of his the van and everything. But there was a much more serious side to Mr. Steinman. I don't think a lot of people knew, and he would play taps. He would play taps behind the Capitol building every night for years. I would hear it, and I went down there a couple times. Vietnam veteran. I'm going from memory. Many years ago, I believe he told me he got sprayed by Agent Orange. He really tried to raise awareness of that, but he would play taps, and he really wanted to help the not just the Vietnam veterans, but he was convinced and concerned about the POWs that were still missing in action. So someone who it's just very, very sad. I think anybody that saw
and Leonard really enjoyed stirring him up at the council meetings, didn't he, Brian?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. He didn't mince words.
Well, and here's a few nice things that you'll find in the Jefferson City News Tribune regarding Leonard Steinman, 71. And I don't know if he had been in ill health or what was going on, but said just a super nice guy. He would get out and go and mow somebody's yard without even being asked and would never ask for anything in return. As a matter of fact, in 2020, when he ran for... And by the way, Blaine Luetkemeyer, Congressman Luetkemeyer, is going to be with us 8:10 this morning, so we can ask him about his dealings with Mr. Steinman. The U.S. Navy veteran, Mr. Steinman, served in the Navy. Good friend of his former Cole County Sheriff Greg White.
Yes.
Lifelong friend of Steinman. This, according to the News Tribune, the men met when they were in the first grade. Wow, what a long time to be friends with somebody. Leonard is and always has been my friend. His heart is good. He loves America. He loves Cole County, and he loves Jeff City. He is a unique personality. Mm-hmm. And that, too, John, isn't that a great descriptor of Leonard? He's
right on the money.
Yeah. He's run for many things and brought many issues to the front that sometimes people wanted to hear, sometimes people didn't want to hear. And his wife says he was recently been pretty proud that he'd been involved with the Operation Bugle Boy, Jefferson City nonprofit that recognizes and holds programs for veterans and first responders. Velma said her husband was proud of a recent induction into the Sons of the American Revolution, the Christopher Casey.
That's great.
Chapter.
I did not know that. I did not, and I just I did not know he went to school with Greg White either. That's news. That's a good, well-written article, and again, our condolences. He had some health issues,
he did.
and I'm 99.9% sure he talked about Agent Orange and stuff, but he really felt like the Vietnam veterans. It's not just the way they were treated, but they were not really well taken care of with health at the VA. When they came back, and that's something he tried to raise awareness about.
Scott Faughn's going to be joining us 7:10 also, talking about Bill Eigel confirming he's in for governor. I thought he did that a couple of weeks ago with Stephanie Bell when Stephanie was hosting Wake Up Mid.
Sure seemed like it, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's the impression I got. And let's take because, by the way, people all across the state were talking about y'all's interview. What did you guys say to Bill Eigel that got like politicians in the entire state of Missouri were talking? What did you guys say to Bill?
Good morning.
Okay.
We put a nickel in him and stood back.
It don't take much.
Also might be talking about sports betting IP, and we could talk potential veto session with Scott Faughn, Missouri Times. He's going to be joining us. Coming up at 7:10 this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Also, Florida man and the lengths that he went to. Did you see? So this freaks me out as a dude for a couple reasons. The other thing, again, it's a very slow news day, as we're probably about to find out in the Daily DC Rundown, which is coming up 5 minutes from now. Congress not in session. It's getting towards the end of summer. This is typically politically slow news cycle. But there's a dude in Florida who was stranded at sea for like 2 days. And that doesn't seem like much. But the lengths that he went to survive, one of the stories we are covering for you this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri Daily DC Rundown with Stephanie Bell coming up 6:25.
Yeah, we might need to rebrand the Daily DC Rundown to like 2024 Watch or just Court Watch at this point, because that's really, I mean, we're watching all of these court proceedings with Trump indictment.
this idea of this government regulatory strategic advisory business into the private equity world. And I think he was excited about the prospects for Hunter, and he was just thanking me. I think it was a nice gesture.
That's Devin Archer talking to Tucker. Tucker on Twitter, or Tucker on X. I don't know what Tucker Carlson's calling it nowadays, but he's still coming up with some really big stories. That was Tucker Carlson and Devin Archer. He was the guy who was on the Burisma board with Hunter, who testified in Congress a couple of weeks ago saying, yeah, I was in the room when the now president of the United States, was involved in these phone calls. And they are talking about now that letter from Biden to Archer. That's getting us in to today's Daily DC Rundown with Stephanie Bell.
And of course, Biden originally said, no, I didn't talk to Hunter at all about his business. One of the most telling quotes from Devin Archer, Hunter spoke to his dad every day, right? Now, most people I know don't speak to their parents every day, but the fact that you would speak to your parents every day and they have just absolutely no idea what you're doing for work or anything about your business life, I think is just unfathomable.
That is interesting. As an adult, do you talk to your parents every day? I don't talk to my parents every day.
No.
Hannah, you talk to your mom every day?
Just about.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think this was more than just I text a lot, but phone calls, that's what Devin Archer was saying, was there were many, many phone calls where Joe Biden was on speakerphone.
And phone calls especially. If somebody calls me, I'm freaking out
something went wrong.
Something's wrong. Mm-hmm. If somebody's calling me, I'm like, uh-oh.
And even now, something will go wrong and they'll text. I'm like, is everything okay? And they'll send a text. I'm like, this was a phone call worthy, right? But anyway, all right.
I also hate when you text someone and they call you to respond to the text.
All right. This would have been a phone call because a North Carolina Congresswoman, U.S. Rep. Kathy Manning, was in a car accident with her staff member. She's doing okay. She's going to work remotely as she recovers. She's got a broken sternum and a bone in her foot. That does not sound good. All right. It's not the golden rule, but that whole thing, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Is there a name to that rule, Hannah? What's the golden rule? Treat others as you'd like to be treated?
Yes.
If you don't have anything nice to say about somebody, just don't say it at all. I don't know if there's a name to that rule.
I try to abide by that, but yeah, if I ever get really silent, you probably know that there's someone close by that I don't have nice things to say.
You've been in that situation, Marsh, where it's oh, you know that John Marsh? Mm-hmm, I do. Mm-hmm. I do.
Well, that's how our 2024 candidates are behaving. They were in Iowa. They were at Ashley Hinson's fundraiser. It was at a racetrack, which sounds super fun. Apparently, there are 800 people there, 7 GOP hopefuls. And it was, Trump there was a lot about Trump in the news last week. And the GOP hopefuls just basically stayed silent because, think about their position. They can't really go after Trump because they lose part of the base. And even Asa Hutchinson, who's been kind of known for going after Trump, was pretty mum this last week because I think they see it in the polling. And so everyone's just, abiding by whatever we're going to call that rule.
But speaking of polling, now we're talking Trump versus Biden. Jamie Raskin, Democrat from Maryland, asked about the polling between Trump and Biden.
Why do you think a thrice indicted former president is neck and neck with the current president?
And there is polling this morning that shows Biden and Trump neck and neck. And he asked him, so why? This guy's been indicted 3 times, yet your guy, he's not beating him in the polls. We should do the answer if we have time. We might do that 6:35-ish.
We should. And Missouri couldn't get this done, but Ohio just might. Initiative petition reform is on the ballot in Ohio tomorrow. And this would actually raise changes to the Constitution from a simple majority to 60%. Of course, that was something that was talked about in Missouri that didn't get done. They're voting on this, whether or not to do this to, I think it's protect Ohio's Constitution or something tomorrow.
Missouri team, Branden, Stephanie, John's here, so's producer Hannah. Of course, Brian Houseworth as well.
Yeah, it was very embarrassing.
Glad to have y'all on board this morning as we
terrible.
Sing a little song here.
I hit one time.
Armadillo, I'm mourning.
With kudos to George Strait and Cosmo from our top 40 radio station, Y107.
Man.
Brian shared a story last week about the time that he hit an armadillo. Not only hit it, but I think full-fledged ran over it. And we asked him, what did that sound like? His description?
I believe he said artillery shells going off.
Artillery shells going off underneath a tank or something. And it happened to be the Missouri National Guard was just
trying to sleep.
And I have clipped Brian's retelling of this harrowing story, and it's living on the Wake Up Facebook page, if you would like to go check it out.
Because the way he tells the story is pretty brilliant.
And the damage that it did to his car.
Well, he drives a little shoebox. I mean,
several $100s in repairs. Good morning. Welcome to the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. There's Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
Good weekend?
Oh, yeah.
How was the Piccadilly event?
It was awesome. Really not the weather, something about that event, it just has some sort of magic. Because, the weather, between the heat and the crazy storms, the fact that it was just perfect on Saturday night was crazy.
Marsh, you know who founded that event?
I do.
Because I like it. It's just magic surrounds that event. Says the event's creator, Stephanie Bell.
There was a committee of people. I just happened to be a part of it but it was its 10th anniversary, so I do think they raised a bunch of money, which is good for downtown. And yeah, it was nice to see a lot of people.
Well, I get bummed because the weather, a couple of weeks ago, all these county fairs having to endure the heat, fewer people come out to the fair.
Yeah, the Cole County Fair got rocked last week. It really, some stuff rained out. I went in the pouring down rain on Thursday and it was fine. But then Friday, there was that sudden bout of severe weather.
And this guy chatting with our news partners at ABC 17 heading into the weekend.
We feel like there has been an impact on attendance. Things have been a little bit slower, but we're really keeping our chins up and hoping for better results for the weekend.
And some of that happened. But what they do with the proceeds, it's not just the proceeds for the fair. So apparently they start right away as soon as the fair is over. First thing this morning, when they get in this morning, they're going to start planning next year's fair and looking at their finances. Who can we afford? And they're like, well, if you've got less money. And they do a lot of charitable stuff in Cole County, John.
Yeah, they do. And they step up every year. And it is tough on fairs, not just Jefferson City JC's Cole County Fair. But, gee, when you have something that factors in all the severe weather, you don't want to put your fairgoers at risk. And it's just one of those deals. What do you do?
Too bad aren't fair the state fair isn't this week because weather looks really, really good this week.
Does it start? It starts this week.
Does it start this week?
It starts next week.
Today,
I'm on it. I'm going to GTS it.
I think it starts on Sunday, if I'm not mistaken.
We should do a new feature here on the show.
The 10th.
We're doing one new feature called "And That Would Be All," except for this. We're doing that about 7:50 with John Marsh. We should do another feature called "Let's Talk About Things We Should Already Know the Answer To." And one of the things we're talking about that we should already know the answer to is when does the state fair start?
The 10th.
The 10th, which
is
Thursday. Well, that's when weather's actually going to get bad. Well, the next few days, the weather looks good. A few clouds today, high only 81 degrees. Tomorrow, sunny, high only 83.
Wow.
Then Wednesday, we'll be lucky if we hit 80 degrees, but we are expecting some more rain.
When is the official first day of fall?
September 21st, 22nd? Again, let's do a topic. Let's do a segment called Things We Should Already Know the Answers To. Is it the 20th of September? September 21st?
Why are you looking at me?
I don't know. 874-9390.
September 23rd.
September 23rd
at 1:49 a.m. Central Time.
And of course, on that day,
he looked at Steph because he wanted to know if he could wear white after Labor Day.
There we go.
So he's asking you.
And I'm sure on the first day of fall, it will be 107 or something, right?
Just in time for Mizzou football. By the way, Mizzou football coach Eli Drinkwitz.
He was all over the news yesterday.
He went viral. Not just here in Missouri, but he went viral. Hear what he said that's got him going viral. And I guess, and you know what? I kind of agree with what he said, but I'm one of those. I'm an old fuddy-duddy. The college division should stay where they are. Well, how come, Branden? Because it's the way it's always been. And I don't have a better excuse.
It's not a good enough reason.
It's not. You're right. It's not. And he teed off. If you missed what he said, we'll highlight that for you at 7:35. Scott Faughn is here talking about, he asked him in private, hey, what did you think about the conversation you had with Stephanie Bell and John Marsh on Wake Up Mid-Missouri a couple weeks ago? Scott Faughn talking Missouri politics and its implications on us. He's here 7:10. Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer. Wonder if he's got anything different for us out of Jefferson City. And I want to get to what this dude, he was stranded. Here's how you know it's a slow news cycle. We're talking about this dude stranded at sea. He drifted out for like 2 days. I mean, usually wasn't there a dude we just rescued out off the coast of South America, had been out to sea for like 48 days or something?
Then there was the guy a few months ago who survived off of ketchup.
Yeah.
While he was out at sea.
This reminds me of the thirst strike, the 8-hour thirst strike.
Some lawmaker, was this What's Hot with Hannah, or was this something we just covered? But some politician wants mandatory water breaks for workers outdoors in southwest part of the United States. And he says, I'm going to go on an 8-hour water strike to fight for what's right, fight for the people. Went for 8 hours.
And they applauded when he took his first sip of water.
Like you thought they were watching Neil Armstrong walk on the moon. You know, John, like it was the 1960s, like they were celebrating.
That was a weird one, wasn't it?
It was crazy.
On the steps of the State House, no less.
Yeah. But what this dude in Florida did to survive, the body is a remarkable thing. We're going to cover that here in a few minutes. But I want to get to this. Jamie Raskin, he is Congressman Maryland. He is a Democrat. He's on the talk stations over the weekend. Of course, everybody talking about Trump. I opened up USA Today, and they had this nice story about, here's a recipe on things you can do with homegrown tomatoes. So I open up this recipe, and I start reading. So,
do you have homegrown tomatoes?
No, but I'm going to get some from the grocery store.
Not grown at your home.
But I'm opening up the recipe, great recipes for homegrown tomatoes, and I open it up, and it says, first thing, you know, Trump's been indicted 3 times. If the news is making you weary this summer, you should use these recipes using homegrown tomatoes. It's like it's that bad. That's all they're talking about. Jamie Raskin, interesting question from MSNBC's Chuck Todd.
Why do you think a thrice indicted former president is neck and neck with the current president?
It's a really good question.
Thrice.
Right? When was the last time you used the word thrice in a sentence? I don't know, short of quoting somebody, I don't know that I've ever used the word thrice.
I mean, I'm a lawyer, so it's like an everyday occurrence for me.
And Trump says he's about to get indicted for a 4th time from Georgia specifically. Interesting thing about this Georgia indictment, the attorney general, she's getting her press photos redid and all that stuff. Like she's got her hair done. She's getting new press photos in anticipation of this.
Mm-hmm.
So he's asked, Mr. Raskin, how do you get your head around that? This guy's been indicted 3 times, and he is accurate. And he is citing a poll that does show Trump and Biden are tied. This is an Emerson poll. Shows they're tied. How does he answer that?
Well, it's a great question. I wish that Lincoln were around to pose it to him, because it's his political party that they've dragged into the mud here. I mean, that was a pro-freedom, anti-slavery, anti-know-nothing, pro-immigration party, and now it's become a cult of authoritarian personality. And, you know, even the candidates running against Trump dare not challenge his clear betrayals of his constitutional oath.
But the dude's been indicted 3 times. Why is your guy only tied in the polls with him, Jamie? Spoiler alert, did not answer the question. This dude in Florida, stranded at sea, 24 hours. And he's in water. Obviously, it's infested with sharks. His name is Charles Gregory. About 4 o'clock in the morning, he says, I'm going to go fishing. He gets him a little 12-foot John boat, which is just like lightweight. It's something you'd see out on a river, but I don't know that I'd be going and putting that into the ocean. This is on the east side of Florida, by the way, 12-foot John boat. And apparently he starts taking on water. Tide comes in bigger than what he thought it was going to be. And then he gets taken out to sea, and he struggled to stay alive. At one point, dude had to take the engine off the boat because his boat was sinking. He's getting stung by jellyfish. He's seeing sharks everywhere. And then we see this a lot, don't we? And he had more conversations with God in those 30 hours than he's ever had in his whole life. Yeah.
Sure.
I've seen that happen. Except for me, it was always like I was in the back of a squad car when all of a sudden I thought, I'm going to get friendly with God here real quick because I could sure use some help right now.
Hey, man, long time no talk.
Seems like the last time we talked, let's see, I was in Salt Lake City getting arrested for this. Long time no see, God. Don't behave that way anymore. But one of the things he did after getting tagged by all these, and I don't know if you've ever been stung by a jellyfish. It's not fun.
Not fun.
He took off his drawers. He used as a flag to help try to track down other boats. I think if I were in that situation, I think I'd just say, never mind, I'll take death over the possibility of getting stung by a jellyfish without my drawers on.
I don't know that we're dealing with the sharpest tool in the shed here. Like, I'm looking at, have you seen a picture of this guy's boat? I don't think I'd take that boat out on the Lake of the Ozarks.
Well, I was also thinking, why would you ditch the engine on your boat?
The one thing that might get me back to shore, I'm going to toss
Right. Maybe he was delirious from being out at sea?
Well, he was taking on water at this point. He was trying to get rid of any weight that he could.
I mean, I understand the thought process to an extent, but it just doesn't seem like a great idea.
Yeah, the whole thing was a bad idea. Going out 4 o'clock in the morning, not understanding the tide, and in a 12-foot flat-bottomed dinghy. No. Coming up, Battle of the Century. We
ending the day down 50 at the closing bell.
Stephanie's going to have your futures with the opening bell. We'll do that for you. 8:25 business news, little twist only Stephanie Bell can give you here on the show.
Did we rename the segment?
What did I say?
Opening bell.
We'll give you the opening bell during the morning bell with Stephanie Bell. It's coming up 8:25. Let me try this cue card. Welcoming. Glad you are here. Cool thing. Weather going to be really
Come on,
nice.
Joe.
Really nice note. Come on, man. A little bit of sunshine. Mostly clouds. Maybe a little bit of sunshine today. Our high only 81. Right now it is 68 degrees. Two boys going at it again. It was a match we were thinking it was going to happen. And then the moms got involved. And it's not like one of these MMA fights or anything. It's between a couple of Stephanie Bell's homeboys.
I'm super excited.
Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, apparently going to be doing I don't know if they're doing a cage match. It could be a cage match between Elon Musk and Mark.
It's charity work. That's what it is. All proceeds will go to charities for veterans.
Well, okay, in that case.
For charity, Brandon.
I guess it's okay.
Isn't Elon is not in good shape, right?
Elon's
Zuckerberg's a black belt.
Yeah, Elon's, a few pounds, I guess, to be getting.
I wasn't saying but he doesn't look like he's
does anything active
or like lifts or anything.
Well, Brandon, my What's Hot with Hannah story from Friday was Zuckerberg kind of made news because he claims that he eats 4,000 calories a day.
Yep.
And he's such a little guy. It's just hard to imagine him eating that much, but I guess he trains a lot. He does some form of mixed martial arts. And his McDonald's order was crazy. It was crazy. I'll have to see if I can find it. It was multiple burgers, large fry.
20-piece McNugget.
Yeah.
A McFlurry. Yeah, and he said he also ordered extra burgers for later. Who eats leftover fast food burgers?
I'm going to get some fast food stuff, and then I'm going to put some of it in the fridge, and then put it in the microwave and microwave it later.
After that stuff cools down from being warm, not any good.
But everyone thinks it's cool. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, his McDonald's order. That's so cool. And you know what it reminded me of, though? Was people gave Trump so much crap for all of this, all of his bad Diet Coke eating and his fast food eating and his serving fast food. But now when a tech bro does it, everyone's like, oh, that's cool, man.
And I'm trying
this tech bro is into Brazilian jiu-jitsu, though. I don't know if it's the same.
By the way, this tech bro spent some time here in mid-Missouri several years ago. Stanton Brothers Eggs, a couple of guys who...
Probably did, didn't he?
Yeah. Came, hung out with Dustin Stanton and his brothers. But the other thing I'm wondering, so they're going to be doing this on X Live. I'm trying to think the last big live event they did on Twitter, wasn't it the Ron DeSantis?
Oh, gosh, I hadn't even thought about that. They're trying to make a comeback.
That went so well the first time. Let's just try it again.
Well... By the way, Marsh, you know who this Butterbean dude is?
Yeah, he was some big fat boxer.
He was a boxer, and that was his. As a matter of fact, if you saw the Jackass movie, he was with. Who hasn't seen the Jackass movies with Johnny Knoxville, right?
I haven't.
You haven't?
No.
Oh, Hannah, you're missing out. So, Stephanie, you remember watching the Jackass movies, right?
No.
John, you remember watching
the Who?
Brian Houseworth? Oh, never mind.
I would put money on the fact that he hasn't.
Right. We should bet on that and find out a little bit later. But anyhow, he was a big boxer, and Johnny Knoxville, he lets this dude beat him up. He's lost like a couple 100 pounds, and he looks really good. But people are saying, but now what are you gonna do? Because that was kind of one of your things, man. So how do you do it now? Coming up a little bit after 7:00, Scott Faughn, Missouri Times. We talk about national politics and the way they affect us, but then we talk about the local stuff like school board races and its direct implications on us. And we talk about our good friend Stephanie Bell. Bell, who's an elected servant in the city of Ashland. She is an older woman serving the city of Ashland, and we talk about how things that happen on a local level, like Columbia, the budget for city of Columbia, that's a big thing. It affects us. But Missouri politics and Scott Faughn, he's on that. Apparently, he spoke with Bill Eigel. Bill Eigel was with him on This Week in Missouri Politics, and I was wondering if they had talked about what did you guys say to him, Steph? They got politicians from across the state of Missouri talking about y'all's conversation with Bill Eigel.
You know,
I turned his mic on.
Yeah, I think he had like some of those new prime drinks before the show. He was amped.
So Scott Faughn, he's going to be talking about that coming up at 7:10. By the way, one of our local congressmen, Blaine Luetkemeyer, he is here at 8:10. Maybe he can give you some insight because we see the things on the news that's happening in D.C., but maybe he can offer us
Republican Party. The Missourians have continually chosen the GOP platform as the method that they want to use in order to make our state successful. So, she came out with a fancy ad, and that's great. But, I think the real decision that we're going to have to look for is going to happen in August in the Republican primary.
Bill Eigel, conversation several weeks ago with Stephanie Bell, John Marsh, and Brian Hounsworth here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, talking about Crystal Quaid. That was right after the Democrat announced she is going to be running for governor. But apparently, Stephanie and Marsh, y'all, I don't know what y'all said to Bill. John, what was it y'all said to Bill that got him going?
You're next.
Hello, basically, is what it was.
Hello,
I do think I asked him if he was mad because Crystal Quaid didn't mention him in her ad, and I thought maybe he took offense to that, and so maybe that set him off.
There's a very cool publication for statewide politics. It's called the Missouri Times. MissouriTimes.com is what you're looking for. Scott Faughn runs this thing, and he's joining us now. He also does a TV show. It's called This Week in Missouri Politics. Had Bill Eigel on. And you can watch the show, by the way. It's on Sundays. Check your local listings, or you can go to the MissouriTimes.com, and you can see his interview with Bill Eigel, who is now running for governor. Scott, did you ask Bill Eigel about his conversation with Wake Up Mid-Missouri and what he said with Steph and John?
Well, Bill is now almost, John's right. I mean, he shot out of a cannon. So I didn't get to even bring up the individual quotes, but I did take some of Stephanie's questions and like, okay, I get it. You're going to say this, but you don't actually mean this, right? And I mean, he would just double down. I mean, some of the stuff like Bill Eigel is a businessman, right? He had a solar panel business that he sold, and he was very successful at it. And so some of these W-2 Republicans get on there, a lot of these folks have never created a job, but they're an expert in job creation. Bill Eigel's actually employed people. So there's some of the stuff he can't get away with as easily as some of your more pathetic Republicans that'll just drone on about stuff they know nothing about. Well, Bill's like, the budget's bigger. I was like, well, yes, but that's because federal money's been given to the states to spend. You got to spend it or you lose it. And he's like, yeah, but. I'm like, well, no, but you understand that. Other people, Republicans, probably don't understand business. And then he came up with the part of it that I think is it reminds me of when Trump said he would build a wall and make Mexico pay for it. Now, if you weren't an idiot, you knew that Mexico would not pay for this wall, right? We all knew that. But we liked Trump. It sounded good, so we went along. Him telling you, we'll get rid of your property taxes and we'll still have schools. It's like going to Casey's and saying, I want breakfast pizza, but I'm not going to pay for it. It's not real. And that's a fantasy that is untrue. But Bill's doubling down on it. He's saying, we're going to cut your ambulance district. We're going to cut your police department. And they'll just figure it out, and it's not a big deal. Well, go ask the cops. It's a big deal, right? Go ask the ambulance district. It's a big deal. And I think in the state constitution, it says you have to adequately fund schools. And that's the problem. I mean, in reality land, which Republican primaries are now, it's sort of like a test to say the stupidest thing you can come up with, because that's what they want to hear. You have to convince them you are totally crazy. And I think that promise is like having Mexico pay for the wall. It might sound good. We all kind of chuckle, but we all know that getting rid of property taxes, you'll have to have revenue from somewhere. It's just not real.
And here's a good time to be watching the show on our YouTube channel, because some of our Republican friends would be mad for me to admit this morning, but when you're saying sometimes some of these Republicans and the Democrats, I'm talking about extremes on either side, you got to out crazy the next candidate sometimes. You ain't lying. Scott Faughn from Missouri Times joining us this morning here on Wake Up.
Across the river, Brandon, in Illinois, the Democrats in there, because it's a Democratic state, we all live in our own silos, to be honest with you. 85 to 90% of the people know who they're voting for if they vote. And they're not interested in they're not persuadable at all. Crystal Quaid has this wonderful perch she's sitting on. I've told you guys, since she's been minority leader, since I've been coming on this show, I've talked to you about, hey, there is a talented Democrat who actually can talk to people, like not just people in some left-wing pot smoker commune in the cities, but actual folks. Crystal plays these men like you can't imagine. Yes, I think Bill's a little put out. She won't engage with him, and she knows how to work it. I mean, she's worked this into a campaign that frankly has very little chance of actually winning. She turns it around by attacking just the right way and then kind of pull him back. And she's like a cat playing with a dead mouse sometimes with these guys.
All right, Scott Faughn, Missouri Times, hanging out with us here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri this morning. Stephanie Bell, Brian Houseworth, John Marsh, producer Hannah. My name is Branden Rathert. You said most people, and it's interesting because I agree to an extent on the being persuadable on elections. Let me ask you this. We're going beyond state politics now. Are you persuadable right now for the GOP nominee for president?
Oh, sure. Okay. I think Mike Pence is as boring as everyone else. I almost couldn't vote for him because I couldn't imagine him be on the news every night.
Who's more boring, him or Asa Hutchinson?
Oh, Mike Pence for sure. I mean, I actually know Asa Hutchinson a little bit in reality. He's funny. I mean, and Mike Pence is just boring. Oh, my God, boring. In the news business, I mean, Brandon, what an awful thing we'd have to do to try to make this guy interesting for you for 4 hours. Oh, my God. Bless your heart.
For 4 years. For 4 hours a day for 4 years.
Misery. Just misery. But I tell you, I like that Nikki Haley. I think she's got a little bit of Kamala Harris is interesting. Now, she's also hateable, but she's interesting. There's an interesting piece to come when she comes on television. That's a watchable person. I think Nikki Haley's a watchable person. I think she's got a little bit of charisma. I kind of like her.
But the point is, you're persuadable on that election.
Oh, sure, yeah.
All right.
I mean, I think Donald Trump will absolutely lose to Joe Biden. I think he just will.
Yeah.
And I think that the fact they keep charging him with stuff makes me like him a little more. But I think we know how this ends. And rematches don't work.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I agree with your assessment. Trump will lose in a general to Joe Biden. Our guest this morning, Scott Faughn, Missouri Times.
All right, Brandon, thank you. Scott, always a pleasure to have you with us. For those that are into politics, I know they probably saw the Twitter spat a couple of days ago. I think it was over the weekend. State Representative Sarah Unsicker, who's running for Attorney General, and our current auditor, Scott Fitzpatrick. And it all has to do with some court proceedings. I believe the courts in St. Louis County. Scott, I know you saw it. Any reaction to that? What'd you think?
I mean, I happen to like Sarah Unsicker because she actually believes what she's doing. It's not a game. Like, Scott Fitzpatrick can tweet a little bit tongue-in-cheek sometimes because it's, he doesn't take himself so seriously he can't have fun. Sarah Unsicker takes herself very seriously, and she is not joking. I almost think that whole AG primary is just for my own personal amusement. So, yes, I do. There's a handful of people's Twitter I read all the time, and hers is one of them. Number one, because I respect her because she's sincere. She actually believes what she's saying. It's not a joke. It's not tongue-in-cheek. And I think Scott Fitzpatrick is a professional politician who wins elections, and therefore it's always funny when someone is Scott Fitzpatrick knows what you know, what I know, what everybody listening knows, is that Sarah Unsicker will not be Attorney General, will not come within 20 points of being Attorney General. So it's all just almost like an intramural game, so it's sort of funny to me more than anything else.
Gotcha.
Scott, with Bill Eigel now officially in the GOP primary for governor, I guess the question to you is, how does he play the spoiler, and who would he presumably take votes from, or would he take them equally from Jay and Mike Keogh?
I honestly am not sure he is just the spoiler. I think he is going to be a bigger factor than folks think. I mean, look, I think you have to have money to go and become more than a spoiler. He's raising money. He's raised more money than Jay Ashcroft every quarter but one. I think Bill Eigel's running a great campaign. He's very good. I mean, the interview, he's the best person to do media interviews. He's the best orator in the entire Republican Party. I thought his interview with you guys was great. I mean, it was interesting. You didn't turn the channel. I mean, you didn't know what kind of almost crazy thing he was going to say next, but you wanted to hear it. And, I mean, it's good radio. If I'm you guys and Bill Eigel has time, I want him back on because he's interesting. He's a good interview. I think he could break through in an age where you can, if you can go convince people like yourselves that he's a viable candidate, you'll have him on more. Therefore, your listeners will hear him more, and he'll become a viable candidate. It'll be the prophecy will fulfill itself. I think at the end of the day, he's aimed at Jay Ashcroft first. He had a great stat that he gave on my show. He said if name ID was so important, Peter Kinder was winning by more in 16 than Jay Ashcroft is winning. and he ended up coming in, third? A pretty distant third to Eric Greitens. So that to me was okay, that's not just a historical fact. That's a recent historical fact. I think the line could be more than a spoiler. And on my show, I asked him, John, I tried to channel my inner John Marsh. I asked him 8 different ways. Are you really running for governor? Are you running for something else? And, I mean, he was steadfast he's running for governor. I tend to believe him, and I think he's got a puncher's shot, not just to be a spoiler, but to win the thing. And I think if he is a spoiler, I think he'll spoil it for Jay Ashcroft.
Well, we've got about 1 minute left. Let's get away from candidates and on to issues here shortly. For 2024, how is that initiative petition process and issues on the ballot shaping up?
I think that whatever the initiative petition process as it stands today will be the one that the 2024 ballot initiatives will be done under. It's good to get on the ballot. I think sports betting is the one regular people care about. I think the teams are ready to go to the ballot. However, there's a lawsuit that maybe even you know a little something about that would make these gray machines, the gas station casino things, that could make them illegal. And I think there is a little bit of wait and see approach here from the sports betting groups to say, okay, if this lawsuit goes in and if these things are declared illegal, well, do they get out of our hair at the legislature? Now, I don't think they do anytime soon. So I think they go to the ballot. But I think there are some folks watching and saying, okay, if this lawsuit that says these gas station slot machines are now illegal, does that mean they'll get out of our hair? I think the answer is no, but I think they kind of want to see how that lawsuit shapes up.
All right, one word answer. Does abortion hit the ballot in Missouri in 2024?
Yes.
Scott Faughn, Missouri Times. Thanks for keeping your answers brief. So now we can get to what's hot with Hannah at 7:25-ish. Your daughter will be happy this morning. Check out the website, MissouriTimes.com. As a matter of fact, you'll be able to see the interview that we've been talking about with Bill Eigel. Scott, we appreciate you, man.
I got to get off the phone so you can get this done. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
See you tomorrow, 7:35. Another gubernatorial candidate, Mike Kehoe, joins. Good morning, 7:25-ish, which means it's
7:25.
time for What's Hot with Hannah.
Now, you said that you already know where this story is headed.
I think so, but I've been wrong twice already this morning.
Hey, that's a good day for you.
I know, that's not too shabby, is it?
It's really not.
Them's Hall of Fame numbers for me, John.
Now, one of the things that the older gentlemen like to get cranky about on the show, one of the many things, is people who put up their Christmas decorations too early.
Yeah.
And this is maybe the equivalent of that. And it's pumpkin spice season.
You knew where this was going, right, Marsh?
Pumpkin spice season is officially upon us.
You know what?
Earlier every year, doesn't it?
It does. Actually, the article I'm reading calls it the pumpkin spice creep because it's starting earlier and earlier every year.
By the way, coming up at 7:50 when we do, and that would be all except for this. John, I hope your story this morning is something that portrays pumpkin spice in a negative light. If I could make a request for that at 7:50.
We'll see what we can do.
What could possibly be negative about the taste of a fall? Nothing. Nothing.
Wait, you don't like pumpkin spice either, Steph?
No.
Well, now I'm a huge fan.
Man. But no, so the gas station chain 7-Eleven, which we don't have anywhere around here, but they have already announced that they're releasing their pumpkin spice coffee in their gas stations.
And the new beer Yangling, it's out with an Oktoberfest and it's already in stores. And I saw it recently and I thought, isn't that a little bit early for Oktoberfest?
Well, 7-Eleven released theirs almost 2 full months before some of the big coffee chains that you might think of. So it's super early. It's not just a little early, it's real early.
Pretty early. It's August.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine, what about this weather? It's hot and you're out drinking hot pumpkin spice? No,
they
thank
make
you.
iced coffee.
And I have a serious question. Is there actually any pumpkin in pumpkin spice? What is in pumpkin spice?
Chemicals.
Nutmeg.
Pumpkin flavoring.
Yeah.
Pumpkin flavoring, nutmeg.
Pumpkin pie spice.
All right. I just didn't know if there's actually pumpkin in it.
Yeah. Pumpkin puree.
Are there any dudes willing to admit at 874-9390? You can text. You don't even have to call in, man. Like dudes that get excited for this, Hannah. Or is this...
Brandon, weren't you raving about pumpkin spice golden Oreos last year?
I bought some for you guys on the show because you were, and I tried one. Yeah, it tastes like fall.
I thought you brought them in because you liked them so much and you wanted to share.
Listen, anytime a dude starts a story with, well, I was having some pumpkin spice coffee. If a dude starts a story, it's like one of Brian Houseworth's stories this morning for somebody who's probably getting ready to get sentenced for something they did. It was a dice game at Douglas Park. Ain't no good story start with, well, we were playing dice at Douglas Park on the edge of downtown.
And an armadillo wandered up.
We're looking for a good bar sign for the wedding. We haven't found a quote that we quite like yet. There was one that I found last night, and it said alcohol, because no good love story starts with a salad.
Oh, that's hilarious. Well, and Brandon, you're saying is pumpkin spice off limits? When Hannah was telling us about Brandon spending all of her money on a big pineapple drink, she was kind of what?
That's not the full story.
Well, I was thinking, were you more mad that he spent your money on the pineapple drink, or that he was walking around with a girly drink? Because a lot of dudes would not walk around with a fruity pineapple drink.
And can we add a little bit of context here? When Stephanie says Brandon,
the other Brandon,
my fiance Brandon.
Brandon with an O.
No, I was more embarrassed by the upside down pineapple aspect. It wasn't that it was a girly drink. It's just he was walking around with an upside down pineapple.
Coming up a few minutes from now, we have
Do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
I have a motto. I eat and drink no for breakfast.
I eat no for breakfast. I eat no for breakfast. There is no vaccine for racism. Talking about the significance of the passage of time. The significance of the passage of time. There is great significance to the passage of time. This virus, it has no eyes, and yet it knows exactly how we see each other and how we treat each other. And when folks vote, they order what they want, and in this case, they got what they asked for.
Sorry, guys, I tried to hold it together, but I couldn't there. Your vice president, hear how she explains community banks. We know it's Monday and everything, and it's tough going back to work. You probably had an amazing weekend. Steph had an incredible slash line in her softball game. We got our stat line we're going to share with you shortly on that. Great weekend. You hang out with family. Hannah did more wedding stuff. Marsh is eating pie over the weekend. Brian Houseworth is golfing and tanning. He laid out for a while. He got some rays. You come back from the big weekend, and you need a little laugh or something. So make sure you're here at 8:10 because Kamala Harris explains what a community bank is.
I think we need to play that game again. Remember when we compared the statements, is this Cuomo or Greitens? I mean, that is some Marianne, what is her name? Crazy Crystal
Williamson.
Lady? I mean, I think you could read some of those quotes and say, is this Kamala or Marianne Williamson?
By the way, also at 8:10, so Kamala's at it again. You can compliment her by saying she's consistent. That's at 8:10. Also, Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer. He's going to be joining some insight into what is happening in Washington, D.C. And Eli Drinkwitz, Mizzou head football coach, he goes viral. What it is that he said has got folks across the country talking. Welcome into the show. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri. We're just doing What's Hot with Hannah, and we were talking about pumpkin spice. It's that time of year, apparently, where folks are getting ready for pumpkin spice. And as a dude...
It's happening. It's happening.
Whatever. And I get it. People get excited and call these coffee shops and places like that. They make a whole bunch of money off the pump. I just think it's weird that you would drink something that you would also buy a candle of and burn. That kind of it just, I don't know.
Hannah said she also likes peppermint. I have a peppermint candle. I do not like to drink anything peppermint flavored.
Yeah, we go from pumpkin spice season into peppermint flavored everything.
Yeah.
And I am very happy until about January.
So,
crowd around here is real big with the peppermint coffee creamer.
Yes.
When we start getting a little closer to Christmas.
Peppermint mochas.
So I'm thinking, like, as a dude, like, dudes aren't supposed to be into, dudes, we don't get excited, John, that, hey, it's almost like when John and I were having lunch the other day, we weren't, oh, you know what? It's almost pumpkin spice season. That's not it's not a conversation dudes have.
Dudes also aren't supposed to pay their grandkids to rub lotion on their feet.
Well,
except during pumpkin spice season.
Randy is super excited. He even punctuated, I love pumpkin spice coffee.
We also had Ben chime in. He says, I like pumpkin spice. I don't make a big deal about it or rush out to get it, but if it's offered, I'll take it.
But to me, it's like the umbrella thing. I don't know why. And maybe that's just me not being comfortable in my manhood. But like as a dude, like when it's raining, I'm not carrying around an umbrella because to me, it seems feminine. And
carrying an umbrella?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it seems feminine, but I do notice that not a lot of dudes carry umbrellas.
What about if you were carrying an umbrella for a lady?
Oh, I'd do that in a heartbeat. Only if somebody was looking. If nobody was looking.
You need a big golf umbrella to fit the roster under.
There's no roster. So now I talk about these manly things I won't do. I will tell you this real quick. I was hanging out in downtown Kansas City over the weekend. And at one point, so there's like those street racers, not like an organized event, just like dudes getting together or on Facebook, hey, we're going to race. So that's going on, and it's insane and loud, and these cars are squealing, and then cops are chasing. And then shortly after that, there's like this gang of motorcycle riders doing street tricks and stuff. But they were scaring people because they weren't, I mean, they didn't have control of their vehicles.
You scared?
And
were they scaring everyone, or were they scaring you and you just want to make yourself sound better?
So then check this out. So all this is unfolding, and all of a sudden, and you know me, I'm a 52-year-old dude. I live my life in a very small geographical circle. And I used to hang out in downtown St. Louis, so I know what to expect. You know, I'm prepped. I'm ready. And all of a sudden I start hearing pow, 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 pow. And I'm like, oh, that sounds far away. So all of this is happening within a matter of minutes.
Were you running or ducking?
He probably wasn't moving.
So then I'm like, and I said, I'm like, hey, we got to, maybe we should, I'm almost like making the ducking motion or something. And I'm like, hey, there's gunfire. And I had to point out, no, it was the metal plates on the road because there was construction and the cars were running over them, John. And it was scaring the hell out of me, man.
That's a city boy response, you know?
One of my favorite pranks that women have been playing on their significant others lately is they'll be like sitting in the car or sitting on the couch and all of a sudden freak out like they're afraid of something, like jump up and scream, or like jump in the back seat and the guy just starts screaming too and doing whatever she's doing and there's just nothing. I feel like you would be the worst. You would fall for that so hard. One day I'm going to be in the studio and just start freaking out.
I was squealing like a girl. So for me to sit here and talk about I'm a manly dude because I don't eat pumpkin spice flavoring and I won't carry an umbrella, don't believe me. John, what was the highlight from your weekend?
Well, I had two. The Gooseberry Pie Challenge continued at the St. Margaret Parish Picnic in Osage Bend. They rank right up there at the top of my list. And the giant king snake I had to remove from the garage over the weekend.
Really? Time to move, John.
Yep.
The whole house is done.
Now,
time to move.
That's good. Get the mouses.
You did not kill it, did you?
No, I took it and let go at the neighbors.
Good. There's no sense in killing those things. Technically, it's against the law. And yes, I will call the cops on you because I'm a fan of.
Brandon's very passionate about snake handling.
And king snakes eat all the other snakes, bad snakes.
Here's one of the highlights of my weekend. Eli Drinkwitz. I guess he went viral. So more schools now. Oregon. I mean, these schools like in the Pac-10, out on the Pacific Coast, Pac-10, they're joining like the Big Ten and it's just getting insane. And Eli Drinkwitz, we were talking earlier about this story from Douglas Park. It was an assault or something. It started with the dice game. Anytime you have a story that starts with, well, there was a dice game in Douglas Park, you know how it's going to end up. Anytime you have a football coach who starts off his statement with, all right, I'm going to say it. I like that. All right, I'm going to say it because guess what? Now he's got your attention, right?
Was that Bill Eigel?
Eli Drinkwitz.
All right, I'm going to say it. I thought the transfer window, I thought the portal was closed. That's just for the student athletes. The adults in the room get to do whatever they want, apparently.
Ooh, a little snarky.
Spicy.
Yeah, national news outlets picked up on it. John, you have any strong feelings about all these schools moving conferences and stuff? So the point he's making, like, hey, we hold our kids to a certain time frame. What about this? And then he goes on to make the point. So you're not just talking the big money-making sports. It's not just football and basketball. Like, what about the swim teams and the softball teams? These teams that fly commercial, they don't get to fly private, and they're going. A school from Oregon could be going halfway across the country to play in an event. And here's my thing: I agree with Eli. I don't like it, but you know why I don't like it? Because that's the way we've always done it. That's the best defense I have.
Come on.
Of schools constantly changing conferences.
I mean, and I think his focus on the student athlete is right. I think especially when you get into collegiate athletics, there's so many other things going on, right? And so I think a lot of times people lose sight that these are kids and people. And I also think I've known, we've had folks here in mid-Missouri whose kids have played, for Mizzou athletics, and parents like to go as well. And I can see it being, I know my family, road trips and people, in the past for Mizzou was able to just road trip to see all the games. And so you think about the expense on the families that are involved too, who want to, support their student athlete.
Well, Pac-12's now, down to 4 schools, Arizona State, Utah, all bailed for the Big 12, and I understand where Coach is coming from, but Coach, I don't think your team's played for the SEC its entire existence, have they?
No. So that was one of the highlights of my weekend. Eli Drinkwitz going viral. Stephanie Bell in her softball game last night goes 3 for 4 with a home run and 6 RBIs.
I don't know that I'm going to be invited back to play next year. But
that has nothing to do with your talent and more to do with the fact that you're going on a float trip.
Oh, yeah.
and skipping a game.
I am, I think. But yeah, no, it's been really fun and really cool to see a new program come to little old Ashland. You know, the city revamped that field, so it's finally usable, and they're putting it to good use. And so that's
the giant
really
rat
fun.
still there?
I haven't seen the giant rat, but update is that the football, the turf is actually down, and I saw it 2 weeks ago, and it was like a big pile of gravel, and I thought, there's no way that field gets done. It's looking really good. The other cool football story from the weekend, John, who was at the Chiefs training camp?
Yeah, none other than the legendary coach of the Jefferson City Jays, the winningest coach in Missouri high school football history, John Pete Atkins.
That was really neat to see. You know, my dad played for Pete Atkins. I think back when...
We all played for
well,
Pete Atkins.
That's true.
Pete played for Pete Atkins,
but
matter of fact.
I thought that was really cool.
He's known Andy Reid ever since Andy was at Mizzou, so they've got a real connection.
Well, and I think the other thing about that is cool. You got a high school football coach going to chat with a lot of those players who have won 2 Super Bowls in a matter of, in a short span of time. But I think it proves that, you can learn anything from anybody. You're talking about athletes at, the very highest level of what they do. But there's a high school football coach from right here where we live that's still going in and saying some cool things. Highlight of your weekend was going 3 for 4 with the home run in softball yesterday. Piccadilly event I heard was huge.
The Piccadilly event was really awesome.
And Hannah, what was the highlight of your weekend?
Oh, we got to have another wedding shower.
I want to get married just for all the gifts and money I envision getting, because you have more parties and more gifts, Hannah, and kudos on you. But I'm like, this is a good gig, man.
Well, you've done it twice already, so you should have more gifts than anybody. I want to know, Hannah, are you serving pumpkin spice cake at your wedding? It is a fall wedding. Oh, is it a secret? Don't tell us. We should be surprised.
There may or may not be a cupcake flavor.
Okay.
Hannah's getting married on Columbus Day at the courthouse.
And when I say there may or may not be, it's not that I'm trying to be secretive. It's that I don't remember.
In Montauk County. Coming up, we're going to be doing That Would Be All Except for This. What do you have for us this morning, John?
I have a brand new side hustle, especially designed for it. Brian Hausworth.
A side hustle for Brian Hausworth. What is it? We're going to find out 5 minutes from now. Good morning.
Down 50 at the closing bell.
We'll take a look at your futures coming up at 8:25 in the Morning Bell with Stephanie Bell.
Well, John is going to be talking about side hustles soon, and I think we should also talk about this side hustle that is making folks a lot of money. And it's not just the old, rich dad, poor dad stuff where you buy some real estate. Something new.
This could be a side hustle. I swear to God, this was on TV over the weekend. So, you can watch pickleball on one of the ESPN channels now.
Mm-hmm.
Swear to God, professional pillow fighting.
What?
And it was dudes, not
this
chicks.
was this on a
what channel? What
ESP
channel were you watching?
ESPN 8. Look it up. I'm not kidding, except for I'm scanning through and I'm like, oh my gosh.
It's right after Jello wrestling.
No, and it was dudes. It's professional pillow fighting. They're in a ring and everything. And it's just as bad as eating pumpkin spice flavored stuff if you're a dude. That's how bad it was. John, what was the highlight of your weekend, by the way?
Heck, I don't know. It was either the snake or the pie.
The pie, probably. All right.
And that would be all, except for this.
All right, featuring Mr. John Marsh. What do you have for us this morning?
We pitch this as a side hustle for the inimitable Brian Houseworth. In the dark, Jason Bullard adroitly shoulders his rifle and levels it at the object. That looks like one, he mutters. Turns out to be a fuse box. Another candidate, again aimed at with a gun, reveals itself to be a rock. But in this North Carolina town besieged by, wait for it, armadillos, anything with a passing similarity to the armored nemesis is under submission. Bullard, an affable man in a camouflage shirt with a sonorous voice and a prodigious beard, has rapidly gone from never seeing an armadillo in his bucolic corner of North Carolina to killing 15 last year and 8 in just the last 2 weeks. Homeowners, perturbed at their lawns being torn up by the newly arrived mammals, deputized Bullard as a sort of armadillo bounty hunter. Brian handing him $100 for every dead carcass he produced. He said it's like hunting aliens. We know nothing about them.
Last week, when we were talking about this, Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler, she heard this going on. She texted an emoji with an armadillo in it. And then somebody else texted us. They have a farm in Arkansas, and they go down there, and they like to chase these things and kill them because they're really bad. They can get like under the foundation of homes and stuff. I said you shoot them, and they bounce like 10 feet off the air, and oftentimes it doesn't kill them. That stuff is so harsh.
Well, and there's a legit industry here though, because there's like the mole guy, right? Like there's a whole business around moles tearing up your yards, and you have to pay. Have you ever tried to catch a mole by yourself? No. It's like we struggled and finally called in a professional. I would think that there's an industry here for that.
Bullard said when the first armadillo was sighted in his North Carolina town in 2019, he said, "I just didn't believe it. I thought the woman had a possum and a drinking problem." But within a year, he was spending his nights on the golf course, like they say, as sort of a cross between Tiger Woods and Davy Crockett. So Brian, the armadillo contract killer. Perfect side hustle for Brian Houseworth.
Brian Houseworth, the armadillo killer. As a matter of fact, Cosmo from our Y107 morning show did this for Brian.
All right, y'all, gather around, everybody here on the Wake Up Mid-Missouri team. Brandon, Stephanie, John's here, so's producer Hannah. Of course, Brian Houseworth as well.
Yeah, it was very embarrassing.
Glad to have y'all on board this morning as we
terrible.
Sing a little song here.
I hit one time.
Armadillo, I'm mourning.
Kudos to Cosmo, George Strait, and Brian Houseworth sharing the story last week about the time he hit an armadillo at the Capitol Plaza.
Brought it up from San Antonio
Hotel. And he said it sounded like mortar shells going off underneath a tank or something. Houseworth was okay, incidentally. The armadillo,
it didn't make it.
Not so much. Coming up a little bit after 8 o'clock, Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer. What can he tell us about what's happening in Washington, D.C.? Obviously, there's a lot coming.
particular those in overlooked and underserved communities, including rural communities. And as the name suggests, community banks are in the community.
I don't always get D.C. speak. I want to bring in Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer. Congressman, can you help us decipher? Kamala saying community banks, as the name implies, are in the communities they serve. What is she trying to do there? Does she think we're all stupid?
Good morning, Brandon, and all other folks with you this morning. Nobody can understand what she's trying to say. She just, she doesn't know. Quite frankly, I think part of the problem is she doesn't know anything about what she's talking about, and so she just sort of throws words out there, talks in circles, hope that she can, confuse people enough to make them think that she's really a smart person whenever she's doing nothing more than denigrating herself and showing that she really is the one who doesn't understand what's going on. That's the only thing I can think of because, as you listen to the clip there, I mean, it's almost insulting the way she's trying to explain what a community bank is. I mean, this is silly.
I used to know this guy back in the day, and he was dude was on steroids. He was a gym rat, and I'm not kidding. I mean, you talk about the stereotype. He was an Italian dude, and his name was Tony, and he was one of those. Kamala reminds me kind of this guy Tony, because Tony go, yeah, eclipses. Here's why eclipses happen. And he would say, I'm going to tell you how it works out. And he would be full of crap, and he'd explain it to you like you're 2 years old, even though he had it wrong, because he wanted people to think that he was something that he wasn't. He wanted people to think he was intelligent, and he was not. Welcome into the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. There's Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
There's producer Hannah.
Hello.
Brian Houseworth is here. There's Mr. John Marsh.
Good morning.
My name is Branden Rathert. Our guest, Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer. It is unfortunate. A lot of unfortunate things happening in D.C. But seriously, this Devon Archer, Hunter Biden stuff, you watch the news at night. You're in D.C. You're closer to it than we are. These national news outlets, this Devon Archer thing, his testimony, honestly, in your opinion, Congressman, shouldn't this be bigger news than what it is?
Yeah, because what Archer has done here is connect a bunch of dots, and this is what we've been trying to do all along here: is get the evidence out there, connect the dots, and then from there we can take action. And this is devastating testimony to the president and his son, and I think it's beginning to show that Hunter was the bag man for Joe. And I think that as we continue to get more testimony like this that continues to connect the dots and cross all the T's on everything, we're going to continue to see. I think that this is going to wind up in Joe's lap whenever we get done here. But yeah, it was. It's amazing that the press doesn't pick up on this more. I mean, they're trying to shuffle it underneath the rug. But this is a huge story from the standpoint of abuse of power, selling of favors. And from the highest office in the land. So if this isn't a story, I don't know what is.
Well, and that's
you guys are in the news business. You tell me.
Right, and that's the thing.
Should be top of the.
And I agree, Congressman. It's like this, my gosh, and we can reach mid-Missouri. We can reach a large portion of Missouri, but it's like this is why this Devon Archer thing matters. He gave testimony. Yes, the guy who is now president of the United States, who was vice president at the time, was in with his kid who was utilizing their name for money. They were utilizing the family name for money and political influence. This is important, and obviously they will not cover it. Our guest this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer.
Congressman, maybe a memory or two of your perpetual candidate, perpetual opponent, Leonard Steinman, and his passing over the weekend.
Yeah, I saw that, and it was sad. I know Leonard ran against me a couple of times, but he always did it in a friendly way and a gentlemanly way. And he and his wife are good people, have good hearts. Their intentions are always good, and he was always a character, and I think we need to remember that. He livened things up and certainly had his own perspective, but he was a great American, and he's a veteran. He served his country, and so I think there's a lot of things we need to remember about Leonard this morning.
He is a U.S. Navy veteran, and even if you don't know the name Leonard Steinman, there's a good chance that you saw Leonard Steinman over the years. My first encounter with him, it was 2015, man. He was about this close to the river outside of his van with a big old cardboard or a big sign that said, "Vote for Steinman for President 2016." And that's how I got to know Leonard Steinman. You may have seen him over the years. Nice piece about him today in the Jefferson City News Tribune. Our guest this morning, Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer, here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
So, tell me about your to-do list now that you're, taking when you're on break. You wake up in the morning. What's a typical day when you're not in D.C. look like as a congressman in Missouri?
Well, obviously this morning I've got some phone calls to make. I've got 2 radio shows to do this morning, and then I've got this week is a little bit light. I've got, I think, 2 more radio shows later on in the week, but normally, like last week, we had a lot of visits around the district. Had several days where we were on the road. I know next week we've got several days on the road as well. The wife would like to take a little time to do a few things, so this is kind of a honeydew week this week. So I've got a few days that open here in the middle, so I think she's got some ideas on things we want to do. But yeah, it's been a long 7 months that we've been in D.C. in an inordinate amount of time compared to normal. And I've got 330,000 new people in my district that we got to get to know a little bit better. So we've got a lot of visits around the district plan. I know that I think next week is a fair week, so we've got I think one day at the fair. So it's just a little bit of everything. I mean, you can imagine there's always lots of things to go see and do, and people to talk to, and we had a number of meetings last week with some different folks around the district on different issues. So, and it's everything from the rivers to the child care to I think last week we talked to some folks about special early or preschool learning stuff. So, I mean, and then small business visits on top. So just a little bit of everything.
Congressman, talk to us about your take on the combined Chinese-Russian Navy fleet apparently sailing around the Aleutians.
Yeah, I saw the story on that, and this is a situation where they are continuing to test us. They want to, they test us to see what our reaction will be. Number one, what do we do? Did we send in planes? Did we send in other ships? And if we did, where did they come from? How quickly did they get there? How many did we send? And all of those things are things that they then use to formulate whatever plan they have that they're trying to hatch. But they get a read on us by doing those sorts of things, how we react, how strongly we react. This is them playing games with us. And, they're really good at this. I mean, they push our button all the time just to see if they can get a reaction. And the Russians and Chinese are getting very close. They've signed a couple more deals with regards to oil production, energy production that China desperately needs and Russia has. It helps China with their energy and helps Russia with their economy. So these guys are some dastardly folks that we've got to watch very carefully. But this is all part of the game that they're playing with regards to how we're going to react, and so that they can down the road understand if they do something what we probably would do in response.
And that's important when the question that John is asking of the congressman here, Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer, because those are countries, obviously Russia and China. They ain't all friendly with us and stuff. And when you have a very weak leader, and that leader being Joe Biden on a worldwide stage, that's what those countries do because they know that Joe is weak. We've played the audio 1 million times on this show of NATO saying, here's why Russia invaded Ukraine. It was because of Joe Biden's perceived weakness. That's why that's tough. That's why it matters. Is there anything, and listen, we talk about the economy and gas prices. Gas prices going up again over the weekend. My goodness, here in Missouri, it's breaking my heart. But we do want things to be well. Is there any way that you can offer us some hope? Is it something that, us Missourians can be looking forward to as it relates to the economy or some kind of change in leadership?
Well, from the standpoint of change of leadership, we're going to have to wait till 2024 here to have an election to be able to change leadership. My personal opinion is I don't think that Joe runs for president. I think he will continue to serve. But I think at the end of the year, first part of next year, he physically and mentally cannot handle the job anymore. I think that at that point he would step aside from the standpoint of running. He'll continue to be the president, and I think you'll find some other Democrats step up to run. I just don't see how he is capable of doing it. You can't spend the whole next year in the basement like he did last time. So as a result, I think you're going to get a change. I think part of this is going to come about as a result of the investigations that are going on. He's in trouble with those, and we'll see how quickly we can bring that all to a head. But Trump has his own set of problems and own legal problems to deal with. So we really got a situation here where your two leading candidates are both going to be tied up in the courts. So. To talk about a jump ball, I mean, the whole thing's in the air right now. Nobody knows what's going to happen.
Matter of fact, Trump attorney expects Trump to be indicted for a fourth time. This out of Georgia, yet one poll shows he's right there with President Joe Biden. So I want to make sure I understand what you just said. You're predicting that prior to his term expiring, you're predicting Joe Biden, because of investigations in health, you're predicting he's going to bail out of the presidential race 2024.
Yeah, I don't think he finishes. He'll finish his term, but I don't think he runs for president again. I think he, from the standpoint of the politics of the situation, he wants to stay in office and be the front runner as long as he can, because he doesn't want to be a lame duck president. So I think he will wait until the very last minute where he can step out of the race and let somebody in. I'm not, off the top of my head, I don't remember exactly when the Democrat primaries began, but I think they're February or March. So I would think that probably somewhere just a month or two prior to that, he would probably step back. But that's just me. I just don't. I can tell you from being around a lot of people who are around him, he really is struggling right now to be able to handle the mental aspect of his job and the physical aspect of his job. They have lowered the steps on Air Force One, so he can take smaller steps to get up into his airplane. This gentleman is in deep trouble physically and mentally. I just don't see how he can continue to be the president of the United States, the leader of the world, and be able to negotiate at the top levels of being able to, where you have to have every cognitive faculty about you to be able to do this, and not be up to speed on it. I just don't see how it's going to work.
And you're saying people that are close to Biden are personally telling you, while you're in D.C., people close to him are telling you personally he's not good.
Yes.
Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer, Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Anything else you'd like to add before we let you go, sir?
Oh, we got some nice rains for the last couple of weeks here, so I know all my farmers have got big smiles on their face again, and hopefully we've got our crops in good shape, and hopefully got some fall pasture. So, when the farmers got a smile on their face and they're going to coffee shop and quick shop, everything's good.
Some hope for the future. Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer, thank you for joining us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Coming up, we're going to be doing the Morning Bell business news, little twist. Only Stephanie Bell can bring you.
Well, if armadillo hunting isn't your side hustle, this could be your side hustle and is making people millions and billions of dollars. And I don't think any one of us on the show actually utilizes this.
All right. What is it? We have options for side hustles. Option A, you can be an armadillo killer. You get paid for it. Or Stephanie's got option B coming up 5 minutes from now.
It was a lot of red last week, but I guess everyone's hopeful this morning. NASDAQ is even up over 0.5% right now. So that is as your market prepares to open. Okay, if the armadillo killing is not your side hustle, then you could get into this side hustle, which I think a lot of people are getting into. And I think I know about you guys. Maybe you have a secret stash somewhere.
Are you wait? When you say you
But
guys, you're talking about Hannah and Marsh, right?
I think so. It's self-storage. And these things have been popping up in Ashland. I know we've permitted more. But yeah, so they're saying it's like during the pandemic, people went nuts over self-storage and people are making millions upon millions of dollars. And now they're even having meetups where they're like, come figure out how to be like a self-storage entrepreneur. And, you know, they say it capitalizes on some of our American weaknesses and our hoarding tendencies. Right. But then, and the Wall Street Journal is kind of throwing shade on people who use self-storage. They said the storage customer is typically described as irrational because they are willing to pay over time far more than the value of whatever they're storing.
So you're saying that it's profitable to go buy some storage units and rent them out?
Yeah, that's what they're saying is these deals and like the price per square foot of the storage units has gone way, way up. And so people are making, and some people are flipping the units, like they're getting a hold of them, kind of cleaning them up, adding some technology, and then selling them for way more than they paid for them. They said they're really profitable, A, because they're mostly month-to-month leases. So you can raise your price like really quickly. Whereas if you're in a year-long lease at an apartment, you know, you get to raise it once, you know, usually once a year. And then also they're on a subscription model. So like, you know, your Netflix subscription or this subscription or that subscription where you just like, it's annoying to have to turn it off. They're like, yeah, if we can get people in the door, they usually think like, I'm going to be here for 3 months or a year. And they're saying like, usually it's like death, divorce, some other type of disaster that all of a sudden you need to put a whole bunch of stuff somewhere. They're like, but the pain of moving it out and everything, most people just continue to pay. And so they said if they've got them for a year, typically people stay for 5 years.
And how many times do they not go back, John, and not even get the stuff?
And then
they
there's
say,
that-
let's put it on TV.
The TV show. I know. That's what I was thinking about.
the mental aspect of his job and the physical aspect of his job. They have lowered the steps on Air Force One, so he can take smaller steps to get up into his airplane. This gentleman is in deep trouble physically and mentally. And I just don't see how he can continue to be the president of the United States, leader of the world, and be able to negotiate at the top levels of being able to, where you have to have every cognitive faculty about you to be able to do this, and not be up to speed on it. I just don't see how it's going to work.
And you're saying people that are close to Biden are personally telling you, while you're in D.C., people close to him are telling you personally he's not good.
Yes.
Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer.
Wow.
30 minutes ago here on the show. We asked him to clarify. He clarified twice. I thought that was pretty interesting, John. He is telling us, the congressman saying here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, people that are close to Biden are coming up and telling him, yeah, he's not good. That's
any great surprise for everybody out there. Maybe the confirmation side of it a little bit.
Right. And I think the other thing is really interesting. Yes, there's Dean Phillips. He's Democratic representative from the state of Minnesota. Yesterday, he's on CBS.
So my call is to those who are well-positioned, well-prepared, of good character and competency, they know who they are, to jump in, because Democrats and the country need competition. It makes everything better. That's my call to them right now.
So you've got a Democrat on national TV saying, yeah, the president, the leader of my party, he needs to be primaried, and he's saying it on national TV.
Well, Mark joined us on the show on Friday, and he seems dead set on the fact that Gavin Newsom is going to run. And, Gavin Newsom's challenged DeSantis to this debate, which I think is unnecessary for DeSantis to engage. But when I said, well, Gavin Newsom's not running, Mark was like, yeah, right, he's running. So, we've got RFK. What's the polling look like on? I mean, he's in and he's like actually doing pretty well.
So, yeah, latest this polling for what it's worth, Emerson shows Biden with a 54-point advantage over Kennedy right now. And Williams, I mean, seriously, and I'm going to stereotype a little bit. You got really all three of the folks right now that are polling on the Democrat side
aren't really with it.
Thank you. Two of them are weird. I'll just say it. Weird. I'm going to be like Eli Drinkwitz. I love it whenever somebody prefaces something by saying, well, I'm just going to go ahead and say it, like Eli Drinkwitz said over the weekend. I love this. He went viral.
All right, I'm going to say it.
And that's how he prefaced the comments. We'll get to those in a minute. What did he say that made him go viral? But I love it. He said, all right, I'm going to say it.
He doesn't even ask. Like you ask Hannah, is it okay for me to say this out loud? He's like, I'm not even asking. I'm just going to say it.
But yeah, Kennedy and Williamson are weird. They are.
Well, according to Jennifer Bukowski, Kennedy's a kook.
He's a kook?
She took some heat for that one.
He's weird.
She's a kook, too. That's a good,
Has people passing gas in his campaign events?
Deliberately while making eye contact.
And Marianne Williamson is predicting it all.
with her magic 8-ball.
So those, really, you think about the Democrat Party, you got Joe Biden, who a Republican congressman just told us here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, people close to Biden are coming up and telling Blaine Luetkemeyer, like, yeah, dude's not good. Blaine Luetkemeyer told us, double down. He also said he expects that Biden will announce that he's not going to run for re-election. That's what he told us.
And then how's Kamala factor in?
And that's the thing. Is it Kamala? Because that's what I'm wondering. This Dean Phillips from Minnesota, who does he mean when he says people that can run and do this successfully? You know who you are. He said that. He said, you know who you are.
Who are they?
Exactly. Who's he talking about? Because then this woman, how would she do in a Democrat primary?
Community banks are in the community.
Probably pretty well with Democrat voters. They go, yep, she's pretty smart.
Yikes.
I want to mention something real quick before we move forward. There's a publication called Como Buzz. Mike Murphy's the dude's name. Does a really good diets, man. Local stuff. It's really, really good. We were chatting the other day before he goes on the Gary Nolan show, and we were talking about a local progressive politician. We were talking about some of our dealings with her. I just had a dealing with her last week at the Chiefs. Chief Jeff Jones is outgoing his retirement party, and we got to talking about the politics. I said, but she's a very affable human. And Mike Murphy said to me, he says, yeah, just because we disagree with these people, we got to remember they're also human beings. And it was a good reminder, but it was also pretty drastic. Like, yeah, I get they're still human beings, but my goodness. Stephanie Bell is here. Good morning, Stephanie.
Good morning.
How was your weekend?
Awesome.
It was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Piccadilly event, which, by the way, is huge. I get to go last year. It was very cool. Something Stephanie Bell started years ago. Another nice event.
Yeah, no, a really nice event. The weather, of course, was playing nice for once in the last 7 days. But with all the severe weather and the heat, I think the organizers were really nervous. It turned out to be a beautiful night there in front of the governor's mansion in Jefferson City.
So you look at who's on the Democratic side of the presidential race. Joe Biden. Marianne Williamson, who thinks she's a psychic, and then Robert F. Kennedy, who does push-ups on TV to boast about his muscles. That's who's all on the Democrat side. There's producer Hannah.
Hello.
Fresh off another wedding party over the weekend.
Yeah.
Did you make some more bank over the weekend?
We got some nice gifts, yes.
Well, I am glad to hear it. Her wedding just days away before Hannah is... It's kind of accurate, isn't it?
I mean, technically, that's always accurate.
Mr. Marsh, getting all fat and sassy, chowing down on pie over the weekend. How are you today,
Gooseberry pie, no less.
Gooseberry pie. Welcome to the show. My name is Branden Rathert.
What was the highlight of your weekend? Have you shared with us?
Kansas. So I whooshed out a little bit in downtown Kansas City over the weekend.
We did hear about that. That was the highlight?
That I about peed my pants. Here I'm talking about how manly I am because I don't eat pumpkin spice. I don't carry umbrellas, but I think I hear something like some gunshots being fired in downtown Kansas City, and I'm crying like a girl, and all it was cars driving over the metal things they put on the road.
Well, that's embarrassing.
Yeah, good weekend. Ended up, it was not the intent, but met some folks in Kansas City and ended up going to the Bull Riders Only event on Saturday night. Man, and it was really cool. I dig bull riding, but I'd never watched so intently. And here's the thing I appreciate about bull riders is like every time they get ready to do their thing, I mean, the way they're strapping themselves in and all that, like they're scared every single time. Not scared, like petrified, terrified before they open that chute. Every single one of them, without fail, is petrified. And it's awesome. It was a great time.
It is awesome. I saw some bull riding in Cole County at the fair on Thursday night. It was pretty intense.
We just got a delivery for Brandon in the studio.
It's not a baby, is it? Somebody didn't abandon a child here, did they?
No. It is from Sherry. You got a bag of donuts. It says, Brandon, have a great week. I stopped by before training.
Sherry? Does it give a last name?
No.
All right.
Yes. Are you going to share your donuts? Are they pumpkin spice flavored?
That would be funny. I know that he's not going to want me to rifle through them, though, to figure it out.
Well, go ahead, because I won't. So while I figure out who Sherry is, let's play some audio of Eli Drinkwitz over the weekend going viral.
All right, I'm going to say it. I thought the transfer window, I thought the portal was closed. That's just for the student athletes. The adults in the room get to do whatever they want, apparently.
Oh, a little salty. Is that out of character for Eli Drinkwitz, Marsh?
No.
No. I thought it was pretty cool because so there's some more schools that have now they've left the Pac-10, the Pac-12. How many schools are in the Pac-12 now, John?
4.
4 in the Pac-12.
It's now the Pac-4.
The Pac-4. But he brought up an interesting aspect of this too, because it's not just football and basketball, which typically those are your money-making sports.
We're talking about a football decision. They based off football, but what about softball and baseball, who have to travel cross-country? Do we ask about the cost to them? Do we know what the number one indicator of symptom or cause of mental health is? It's lack of rest and sleep. Those people, they travel commercial. They get done playing at 4. They got to go to the airport. They come back. It's 3 or 4 in the morning. They got to go to class.
So he's saying, listen, student athletes, that's something to think about.
I loved hearing those comments from him. I think, a lot of times we forget that, like politicians, student athletes are just people, and they need sleep, and again too, I think universities and everyone, like he said, likes to focus on football, and you forget about the impact this has to all sports and to and they're kids. They're young people, that this is really going to put some stress on. So I like to hear his comments.
And Coach Drink is right when he talks about mental health issues and the lack of sleep. And so you're going to continue to push a lot of these kids because somebody who's playing, water polo for a school as opposed to somebody who's playing for one of the money-making sports that's got the private jet and, catered meals and all that kind of stuff.
And all the revenue that comes in for TV rights.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what drives it all. Coach, you can say anything you want about about down sports like soccer and softball and all, but the guys paying your multi-million-dollar salary are with those TV fees.
Coming up, we're going to be doing some leftovers. Interesting. We're talking about Leonard Steinman. If you may not know the name, but you know the guy. If you saw him in Jefferson City, always had the bushy hair, big white bushy beard, always running for office, would sit outside of his van, vote for Leonard Steinman for this. 874-9390. Jason says, man, on Friday, Wake Up Mid-Missouri and the Gary Nolan Show sounded especially good. Both shows on Friday were sounding especially. Gary's here. Is Gary here coming up 9 o'clock this morning on the show? Gary Nolan is here. Yep. It happens to be my dad will be happy. It happens to be his favorite show. It's time for Leftovers. Did want to mention something real quick about Leonard Steinman. If you were in Jefferson City, you probably knew who he was. And if you weren't in Jefferson City, you might still know who the guy was, even if you don't recognize the name. How would you describe Leonard, John?
Colorful.
Colorful. Yeah, he was a character in my first encounter with him. 2015, not kidding, this close to the river in a van, and he had his big old sandwich board. Vote for Steinman president 2016, and it wasn't a fancy sign. It was like his 6-year-old granddaughter was the one.
He spray painted it himself, I think.
Spray painted him himself. He died over the weekend, and he was a colorful character. People said he had ultimately a really good heart. This is an interview from KRCG 8 years ago, and he's being asked by the reporter, he's being asked about abandoned properties.
A one-on-one, you find out who the property owners are, knock on their doors, not as a group, but as one person, and ask them what the problem are, how we can help them out as much as possible.
So he was offering solutions. He's kind of he would look around and say, well, I don't like the way this is, and he would run for office constantly.
Well, and I think that's what we heard in the article quoted from former Sheriff Greg White, where he just said he was not only was he a veteran, but you could tell he cared deeply about Cole County and deeply about Jefferson City, which is why I think he always put his hat in the ring for these offices and got involved, and he had opinions and some good commentary.
Greg White, former Cole County Sheriff, said him and Leonard had known. They palled up in the first grade. That's a long time to know somebody. And telling the Jefferson City News Tribune his heart is good. He loves America. He loves Cole County, and he loves Jeff City. And he has a unique personality. He's run for many things, brought many issues to the front that sometimes people wanted to hear, sometimes people didn't want to hear. His wife tells the paper that he was proud of his recent induction into the Sons of the American Revolution, the Christopher Casey chapter. And Chris says via text, he says, whenever I saw Leonard Steinman in his van, it always reminded me of the Chris Farley SNL skit. And that was, I'm not kidding, that's why my very first encounter with Mr. Steinman, like I said, it was this close to a river. Marsh, what you got for leftovers?
Governor Parsons signing an executive order because we had a bad tornado down in Knox County. It pretty much destroyed the little town of Bering down there. A couple people with minor injuries, destroyed or damaged at least 35 homes. So standing up the state emergency operations plan.
And Holt Summit, I think on Friday, like 20, 30 folks having to get crammed into a shelter there for a while because things were getting really hairy in Holt Summit over the weekend.
All right. Well, in Ohio, we talked about this. They're going to vote tomorrow on their initiative petition reform. They're going to try to raise the threshold from 50 to 60%, but I couldn't get to this little detail, and it gave me a chuckle. Apparently, they're really mad because there's a lot of outside money flowing in on both sides of the issue, and some people are being duped, not by robots, but just by political opposition, in that they did a campaign mailer, but they made it look like a fake newspaper. 8-page local newspaper. They even called it the Buckeye Reporter. And some people, and somewhere I'm sure it said paid for by, Citizens Against whatever. But some people were actually duped, and they actually had quotes and other things, and people are having to come out and say, that's kind of made up and that's biased. But some people apparently fell for it, and I thought that was kind of clever. I mean, I get lots of political mailers, and we're about to get a whole lot more. Yeah. And if I actually saw someone go to the trouble of a little fake newspaper, I'd probably open it up and read it. See what they had to say.
And you go, oh, you got me. You get a few points.
Yeah,
you duped me for a second. Hannah, you strapped in. You got your lap bar down, seatbelt on this roller coaster. Lawsuit challenging the Biden administration's latest way they're trying to do student loan forgiveness. You strapped in. You ready for this ride?
I'm asleep.
And I love this. So John does something every morning, 7:50. It's called And That Would Be All, except for this. And just, interesting stories. Did one last week about the death flower, the corpse flower.
The stinky one.
Stinky one. There's another one. Second corpse flower in a week started blooming over the weekend at the Missouri Botanical Garden there in St. Louis. When the flower's fully open, it will spread its stench throughout the garden house where it is on display.
And that's not how you spent your weekend, Brandon?
I did not.
I'm surprised, honestly.
And I wonder how many people, like, how much they're paying. So people lined up, like you'd think it's 1987. You're out in line for Bon Jovi's Slippery When Wet concert tour tickets at Busch Stadium. That's what you'd think it was like. People in line for this thing, and it makes me wonder how much did they pay.
They were doing a deal where if you went in at between 10:30 and midnight, you get in to sniff it for free.
Smells like a great deal.
Very nice.
Oh, my goodness.
And that's about all that we have here for leftovers. Tomorrow, Christopher Arp's hanging out with us, 6:35. I really dig what Arps does. National politics to the point. They put him on Newsmax like several times a week. You see him on Newsmax all the time. He talks Missouri politics. Also going to be chatting with Lieutenant Governor and gubernatorial candidate Mike Kehoe is going to be hanging out with us for a while. You are in for a real treat. Nolan's next. See ya.